I've just spent the past 7 days of my life upgrading this F1 World Car from level 100 all the way to the maximum level possible, level 1000. And in this video, I'm going to try and break an F1 23 world record around Monza that is held by Ulas Aussie Ildum, who set a 1 minute 17.867. So for my first lap, as you can probably imagine, it was a bit of a disaster. So I had barely driven with this car whilst I was upgrading it, as I already had so many resources available to improve the car. So as you can now see on the exit of the first chicane, I was finding traction pretty difficult. Moving on, we're quickly going to go through this first lap because it was anything but special. However, there was some genuine positives to take from it. So if you've been watching my channel for a while now, you know that a few months ago I tried a similar challenge but with a maxed out My Team car. And trust me, that car was an absolute machine, but sadly this F1 World car wasn't quite as fast. However, there was one massive drawback to that car, and luckily for me this didn't seem to be much of a problem on the F1 World car, and that was the brakes. And trust me, they were awful on the My Team World Record challenge. Next up for this first lap was Ascari, and to my surprise I genuinely took the first part of it really well. However, sadly through the second part my line was slightly off and I had to brake to avoid an invalidation. But this was a massive plus because I knew that for the future this would be an easy fix and I would gain loads of time. Now it's time for Parabolica, which is the final corner on this track, and to be honest this lap had been pretty good for a first one. And I was desperate to maintain this to have a good baseline expectation for the rest of this challenge. And to be honest, looking back, that was probably one of my best corners throughout the entire lap. And in the end I set a lap time that was just over 4 seconds away from the world record. Now I know that you might be thinking that 4 seconds is a lot, which it obviously is. But I knew that if I could sort out the mistakes in the first chicane and Ascari, I would find 2 seconds very easily. And because I had enough EIS and fuel, I decided to go for another lap to keep learning this car and gain some momentum. And quite literally exactly what I hoped would happen in the first chicane did happen, and leaving turn 2 I was 1 second up and improving. So I managed to gain another 3 tenths through the middle sector, but I was massively focused on getting Ascari right this time so I could get closer to the record. Once again, I took the first part of this section of corners very well, but so frustratingly I made exactly the same mistake. However, this time I didn't have to brake on the exit and I only had to let off the power momentarily, so even though this wasn't ideal, I still managed to gain another 3 tenths, which was huge. Now it's time for Parabolica, and I knew that it would be difficult to improve through here, and sadly I did lose 3/100ths of a second. But realistically this is nothing, and I was still learning the car and I was happy with this progress, as I was now under 3 seconds away from breaking the world record with only 2 laps driven flat out. And now it's time for my final lap of Q1. Coming up to Ascari, I was just over 1/10 up, and I won't lie, I was just desperate to get over the hurdle that was the second part of this section of corners. So I actually managed to nail the first part of Ascari with a perfect cut, but I didn't ride the outside curb enough and I made exactly the same mistake, which was so frustrating. However, once again I managed to somehow find time, and coming up to Parabolica I was 4/10 up, which would be a massive leap closer to the world record. So for some reason I decided that I should try and run over the grass for the first part of this final corner, and as you can probably imagine that just did not work out and it cost me about half a tenth. Anyway, I finished this lap with an excellent 3.5 tenth gain, and I was now just over 2 seconds away from the world record. And this was brilliant considering I knew that I could find at least half a second in just one corner alone. And here is my first lap of Q3. By the way, I did skip Q2 as I literally wouldn't have had enough tyres to go for 3 soft runs, and Q3 is when you have the most grip in an F1 23 weekend. So to get through to Q3 I just used medium tyres. Anyway, for this first lap I of course didn't have deltas, there was only one way to tell how I was doing, and that was through sector times. And as you can see I was only 6/100ths of a second up, but progress is progress. And after this I took the second chicane so well, and I knew that I'd likely gained even more time through there. Now we're coming up to the end of sector 2, and it turned out that I had improved by a massive 4 tenths, and if I could nail Ascari I had a serious chance of getting within 2 seconds of the world record. This ended up being the first time that I'd taken this section of corners correctly, and I was desperate to have a good run through Parabolica. One thing I knew I had to not do was run on the grass, and thankfully this time I didn't. Once again my exit out of this final corner was pretty good, but all I really cared about was how close I was to the world record. In the end I set a lap time of a 1 minute 19.130, and this was 1.2 seconds away from the world record. And I was absolutely buzzing, but I definitely wasn't stopping there as I wanted to go for another lap. So as you can see I was slightly down on my delta coming into turn 1 because I had a really good slipstream on that last lap. However, on the exit I also had to battle with this car to get ahead of them, and it cost me so much time. I mean, just have a look at how much time I was gaining on the exit of this chicane. This was where I started to realise that this challenge was definitely possible. So I pretty much maintained this gain all the way up to the straight before Ascari, and I knew there was loads of time to find on the exit. So I managed to cut this first part really well, but to be honest this section could have been slightly better. And this was because I just seemed to steer too much on the exit trying to avoid an invalidation. However, I knew that I could find all of this time on my final lap. So next up was Parabolica, and it felt like every time I went through this corner it was all about maintaining my gain, and once again I did just this. So now we're coming up to the line. In the end I made a huge 4/10 gain, and this put me just under 1 second away from the world record with one massive lap left to go. But sadly I ended up doing a Lando Norris and I just completely bottled my final lap. So I was 2.5 tenths down coming out of the first chicane, and then going through the second chicane. I mean, just have a look at this. However, this was not the end of the challenge, because in time trial you get an unlimited amount of laps, so I decided to start running through Q3 sessions searching for more lap time. So my first lap of these Q3 reruns actually went really well, and I gained just under 2 tenths, which comfortably brought me under 1 second away from Ulas's time. And then later in this session I was a 10th up coming into the Degners. Degner 1 actually went really well, which gained me around a 10th, and then on the exit of Degner 2 I missed the apex but still gained another 10th, which is going to keep increasing all the way up to Ascari. So we'll quickly skip through this straight as Ascari is up next, which for me was definitely the hardest set of corners on the track. Now we're just going to stop this lap here because as you can see I momentarily ran over the grass. And please do correct me in the comments if I'm wrong, but I genuinely believe that the slipperiness of the grass really helped with my rotation into this first part of Ascari, because as you're now seeing I just managed to cut it so well. I then ended up slightly improving through the rest of that section of corners, and now it was a massive half a second up on the penultimate straight. Next up was Parabolica, and as I've probably said about 10 times now, I just wanted to maintain this gain as this could put me within 2 tenths of the record, but I knew that it wouldn't be easy. And it turns out that this wasn't easy, as I slightly missed the apex through the final corner, but luckily for me I took a tighter line to the finish line, so I brought back about another 3/100. Anyways, this was a huge 4 tenth gain, and now I was under 3 tenths away from the world record with an unlimited amount of laps left to go. And then on the next qualifying session I set a lap time that was about 0.08 of a second faster. However, this lap wasn't perfect at all, and I knew that all I had to do was hook up one brilliant lap and I would definitely complete this challenge. But sadly, after this I just simply could not improve. I was setting some pretty abysmal lap times and I felt like I was just going backwards, which was so frustrating. And I was also making some stupid errors which made me crash into the barriers. However, I wasn't going to give up, and I knew that I just had to get 11 corners absolutely perfect and I would successfully complete this challenge. I had done it. In the end, I broke the world record by just under 2 tenths of a second. And if I didn't take Ascari as well as I did on that lap, I definitely wouldn't have broken the world record. Once again, thank you all so much for watching, and please subscribe, as I'm trying to get creator early access for F1 24, and I'm certain that EA are looking at my subscriber count.